Good morning, everybody. This is Bart Lammertyn speaking, and as Oscar just mentioned, I'm a Content Hub Specialist for EMEA. I would have loved to spend this morning with all of you guys in Hotel d'Angleterre in Copenhagen, but unfortunately something else came across. So I'm assuming that you're all watching this from home. But welcome and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you what Sitecore Content Hub is about. What kind of customers do we serve with Content Hub, and more importantly, today we will show you as well and explain you what are the value drivers and what people are getting out of Content Hub. To wrap it up, we will share with you a couple of integrations that we have been working on or that we are still working on to integrate Sitecore Hub, Content Hub with your existing landscape of technologies. So very nice to meet you, and let's dive in. So first of all, let me walk you through a short introduction about Sitecore Content Hub and how Sitecore Content Hub fits into the broader family of solutions within the Sitecore family. Well, if you are an existing customer or to-be customer of Sitecore, you will understand that at Sitecore we talk a lot about digital customer experiences, because these are clearly a competitive advantage. It is said that experience beats products 2 to 1, experience beats pricing 8 to 1. And in order to deliver those meaningful digital personalized experiences, well, they need to be personal and they need to be personalized. As a human, we like to engage with brands. We like to engage with companies, with products, if we get a good feeling about it, if we feel that it is a personal help to us, and if we have a feel that the brand is really trying to achieve a personal relationship with us. So not necessarily you want to send out messages like these. An email I got last week from a hotel in London, so to speak, where I'm invited to the International Women's Day, and on top of that they are serving asparagus with truffle hollandaise, which is not necessarily my most liked dish. Anyway, how do we deliver experiences that connect from a brand perspective? Well, in essence, we tell people and we educate people that ideally you are building relevant content. You deliver these through the right channel in which you want to communicate with your audiences, in which obviously that personalized content is being shown to the audience and to the personas. Hopefully, and if all goes well, this will drive outcomes, whatever they may be, and whatever your KPIs are, which you have set beforehand. You want to analyze that conversion data. You want to measure the effectiveness in relation to those KPIs. And you want to learn lessons from them in order to repeat this continuously loop and optimize and make your work even better for the next iteration and the next round of personalization. A lot of companies are aiming for this and are trying to achieve this. In general, we see two major topics popping up. It's about the implementation of that personalization, which more has to do with the definition of the personas, which has to do with the typical engagement workflows that you want to set up with your different audiences. That's one key challenge. The other one is to deliver such a high engaging customer experience and engagement with your customers at scale. It's okay to do that for a specific, well, a lot of brands are achieving this for one specific campaign, for one specific event, for one specific key store or flagship store that you might have within your organization. But people are struggling with delivering that at scale and time-wise to continue to deliver that personalized experiences. And one main thing within that personalized experiences is obviously that you need huge volumes of content. Again, some figures from analysts and from the market, in which marketeers have been interrogated or being questioned, and 97% say content is critical. I don't know what the other 3% are doing, to be honest, but a lot of people acknowledge the value of content. But at the same time, people are struggling with the volume and the variety of content that needs to be produced. And obviously, this has a large impact on the budget of your organization, because indeed, a lot of time and a lot of money is being spent on content, whether you do that internally or whether you work with external agencies to help you out with that content development. And again, it will be a quite costing exercise. Now, in a nutshell, and to summarize actually what we want to achieve with Sitecore Content Hub, well, it will give you the capability in the end to improve the way that you work with your products, with your partners, and with your customers. And if we talk about products, well, we can translate that into your world, I'm pretty sure. Whether you're a CPG company working with physical products, whether you're an organization within travel and entertainment, insurance, or whatever you can imagine, well, in the end, an insurance can be considered as a product. A bar of chocolates obviously can be translated into a product. But the main course is here that we want to build that centralized environment where you can access all your product or service information, all the digital visuals around those offerings, and all other content, including blog posts, including articles, including social media posts, for all of the categories that you might have within the organization. So for possibly different brands, different divisions, different markets, that doesn't make any difference. We want to achieve the possibility that local subsidiaries, local marketeers, or even the agencies that you work with get the opportunity to view, to download, to share this marketing collateral between all of the users. We want to give them the possibility to upload possible local, localized material into that central environment. And very important is obviously that we want to reuse and repurpose all of this content within the different channels that you want to send your messaging through. If we focus on the middle part here, the capabilities to improve the way that you work with your partners, it's more about workflow, it's more about projects, it's more about task management. Sitecore Content Hub indeed will give you the opportunity to spark collaboration, to work more efficiently with the partners and agencies, to invite them to upload something to the system, to invite them to translate some of your content, to invite them to consult or to reuse content that has been proven to be successful. And ultimately, the way that you work with your customers, well, the majority of our customers are within a B2B environment. And we do get a lot of demands there for companies to set up a kind of self-service branded portals in which they can find product information, offerings information, all kinds of content and visuals that they want to reuse on their publication channels. Imagine an e-retailer in which you want to publish your catalog, digital catalog of products that you are selling through that e-retailer. Well, it would obviously be beneficial if you can give them at least the latest, greatest approved version of the truth regarding that digital catalog and all of the products within that digital catalog, so that you achieve a consistency not only on your own channels, but also on the channels that you don't necessarily own directly, which they are populating for you. Now, in an ideal world, if we look at content marketing and marketing in general, people and marketeers should be working in this kind of a scenario. You start with a phase of planning and ideation, editorial planning. The process of researching, choosing topics on which you want to create content is part of that first phase. Once that planning has been achieved and you've set your calendars and KPIs, you go into a phase of creation and optimization. Texts are being written, designs are being created, pictures are being taken, videos are being shot, and obviously at some point you pull the trigger to go and distribute this created content over the different channels that you want to serve it to, whether it's your website, whether it's an email, blog posts, offline materials such as catalogs or product sheets. Point of sales material is another example. You go over that phase of distribution. And in an ideal world, you track performance, you audit performance. As I mentioned previously, you want to know what content has been successful, what content is open for improvement. So for your next round, for your next campaign, you want to learn some lessons and you want to continuously improve what you are doing and what you are creating. But if we look at reality, it's a bit more of a challenge and a bit more of a difficult situation. People do indeed have kickoff meetings. People do set KPIs and define messaging strategy, establish timelines. Obviously, content is being developed again, whether that's internally or externally. That's always the case. You go into review and approval. You try to track the process and the progress of the campaigns and the projects that you've set in place. Obviously, you are publishing all of that and you want to test and optimize. But what we see is that people, in order to deliver this process and in order to create, to manage and to publish your content, are faced with multiple systems, which are not always integrated to each other. So you need to log into different environments, different solutions to do your job. Processes and marketeers have never been the greatest match, but having process management in place is a difficulty. The inability to collaborate. Many of our customers are struggling with the communication with their internal or external agencies when it comes to briefing them, when it comes to receiving documents and information and content from those agencies, going over the process of review, annotation, approval. And in the end, it's all getting poured into performance and into visibility, not really a collaborative environment. And if you take into account the sheer volume of content which is needed to deliver those personalized experiences, well, we can easily say that people are struggling with what we call the content crisis. Not that I want to throw in another crisis to the world, but anyway. Now, how did we come so far? Well, we believe at Sitecore that the root cause of this struggle in many organizations is the fact that people have been building divisions, business units, based on the publication channel. We meet customers who traditionally 10 years ago were only focusing on creation of a catalog and who were publishing a physical catalog once a quarter, twice a year, once a year, and that was about it. So they did have control over the whole creation, management, and distribution of content for that one single publication channel being the catalog. But at a certain moment in time, people needed to have an online presence. And they started a new business unit, a new division that became responsible for the website. In many organizations, it's even more siloed, where you have different teams for different regions or different countries being responsible for one or the other channel. And so as an organization, you might have been building different divisions, different organizations, all being responsible for one single publication channel. And people started creating, managing the content that they required for their specific channel within their own department, within their own division. And not necessarily people from other divisions and other publication channels had access to that same environment. So people started Googling for content which they knew they already had somewhere within the organization, but didn't know who to talk to or where to get it from. And you can also imagine that this kind of siloed environment makes it quite complex to have a consistent messaging throughout all of your channels. If everybody has a visual of a product within their own department, within their own different systems, well, how do we ensure consistency and how do we ensure that if everybody is using the latest, greatest, and approved version of that piece of content? And also people, final consequence of this siloed environment is that people are spending quite some time on recreating content that you already have in place. If I'm responsible for the website and I know that within our catalog, for instance, people have been using a certain piece of content, and I don't necessarily can find it immediately, well, I'll be tempted to recreate it myself quickly within my own tools, or even reach out to an agency to have that recreated for me. And I'm continuously spending money and time on recreation of the same pieces of content. Not always shown in the organization. These are typical smaller invoices that pass under the radar. But if you would add them up at the end of the year, it would be quite surprising, I guess. So our first piece of advice when you look into this kind of scenarios is to get the content out of the publication channel and start building one single source of truth of all of the content that you are using within those different publication channels. All of the content, meaning, yes, we will talk about the visual assets, videos, images on your products, on your services, on the things that you are promoting. But at the same time, we're going to talk about product content in general, product descriptions, product values. We will talk about other pieces of content, Roman text, recipes, blog posts, newsletters, articles, whatever you can imagine. So really the whole centralization of content independently of the publication channel where it will be used in. What we see in many organizations is obviously a lot of content is already existing in different source systems. A typical example for CPG companies or for product-driven companies is an ERP system. An ERP system in which you already have a quite good definition of the product structures, product catalogs, product taxonomy, not taking it too technical. And it makes absolutely sense to aggregate that information within your central environment. You don't want to retype, you want to avoid manual interactions. And if you want to keep this information updated, it's better to aggregate the information from the source system into your central environment than typing it in manually in a continuous way. And whilst we're at it, it's not solely about centralizing all of the final pieces of content connected to information already available within other business tools. But we also want to consider diving into the nitty-gritty details of how we are going to organize ourselves, how we are going to planify our content creation, content distribution campaigns, and so on. Around the collaboration, avoiding people reaching out to each other through email, Dropboxes, or any other sharing tools, which is going a bit offline, so to speak, not necessarily giving you a visibility on the status and the progress of this kind of collaboration. We want to include that within that single source of truth. And if we talk about the management of your content, this is more about the curation of that content. Just like a curator in a museum who is closely describing all of the artifacts or all of the pieces of work that they have within that museum, you want to do the same thing with the content that you are creating within your marketing organization. You want to tag your images appropriately. You want to describe your products appropriately. You want to tag your textual content appropriately. So people can easily find it, people can easily reuse it. And not only people, but if going forward, and if we really want to drive personalized experience, which are AI driven, well, at some point we need to be able to give access to AI engines so they can pick the right pieces of content depending on your audiences. And the only way to do it is to closely curate, tag, or manage that content within that single source of truth. So in the end, this is what we are aiming for with Sitecore Content Hub. We are aiming to build one single platform that sparks collaboration, that sparks centralization of the marketing content you are creating, integrated with both your upstream and your downstream systems to aggregate and to publish information from and to the channels that you want to work with. Now, if we open the bonnet of Sitecore Content Hub, if we look closer into the different components and modules, we will discover a couple of key elements within that solution. I've talked to you about centralization of content, and in general, we see three main pieces of content being generated, and as such, we see three main entry points for businesses and organizations to consider Sitecore Content Hub. And these three pieces are digital asset management, marketing content, and product content. And there's no fixed and right way of doing this. If you are struggling indeed with product content and product information, well, this might be a perfect entry point to Sitecore Content Hub. If you are in the phase of centralizing, first of all of your digital assets, well, the DAM component might be a very good entry point. And we have customers today looking solely as marketing content, so more about the process of planification, managing content strategies, production streamlining, and start with CMP. Each of these components, and I will talk to you later on that, they all have their own notion of workflow, of project management built within. But if you want to achieve an overarching and more extended way of approaching projects and campaigns, we do have a module available called Sitecore MRM, Marketing Resource Management, which is not only giving you a clear overview of projects, campaigns, and where you are sitting with those campaigns, but also has a notion of budgets and resources availability. Finally, finally, we can look into Sitecore Web to Print, or I should start calling it Web to Publish, which is our component allowing you for local marketeers or for e-retailers to pick up pieces of information from the central environment and to localize it, to translate it into their own world. And so they can build on templates, start creating their own localized or translated marketing material. I'll try later on to show you a couple of things here in a live demonstration on those different components, but I will try to do that through the value statements and what typically these different components can bring to your organization. A little bit of a historical overview. I've mentioned already that Sitecore Content Hub is like the latest new kid on the block within the technology stack of Sitecore overall, actually acquired in November 2018. And obviously there's a history to it. Sitecore acquired a Belgian-based company called Stylabs, and Stylabs got founded early 2000s out of Belgium. At Stylabs, we were more of a service agency-alike organization, helping our customers with websites, online presence, apps, etc. So really in the market and with our boots on the ground, helping our customers to achieve excellence on their online presences. And we tumbled into digital asset management at some point in time. People were considering enterprise DAM solutions, and Stylabs took part of that play, where we became main integration partners of two leading DAM systems at the time, Adam Software and Northplanes. But not necessarily we were always very happy with the speed of development of those solutions, and we also noticed that we needed to do a lot of customizations on the standard tools to really make it a customer environment and a customer solution. And those were two of our drivers to decide to starting development of our own solution end of 2012. This solution has been sold for the very first time, like a year and a half later, to Procter & Gamble. And actually, we have co-developed as a startup company a lot of our tools and functions with Procter & Gamble. Since then, we've only been growing, and we see more and more traction and interest from the market within our solutions, as I've shown you on the previous slides. Now, as I've mentioned, I want to share with you a couple of value statements and where we typically see customers benefiting from Sitecore Content Hub. And together with our internal teams here at Sitecore called SBOS, Sitecore business operations tools, we are now starting to develop value statements and looking into ROIs. Now, in general, we see that people are struggling, or people are looking into the following objectives. One thing I've already mentioned is the avoidance of recreation and buying, repurchasing of content that you already have in place. This is a matter of having an easy environment where you can store and manage all of the content. And you avoid, as such, the time to tag, to locate, and to use and share that content with people that you work with. And at the same time, you want to look into improving the productivity and the workflow optimization, again, to avoid that recreation and repurchasing of content. The second objective is more to do about governance and compliance. Obviously, you want to avoid the risk of error. You want to avoid publishing stuff to the world, to the market, within your publication channels, which is not correct. Or you want to avoid breaches of rights of content that you have purchased, but you don't necessarily have the right to use within a single region, in a single publication channel, or within a certain timeline. And another objective is that scalability part. People really are looking into solutions that maybe not from day one, but at a certain moment in time, make it useful for a global organization and a global brand, and try to consolidate different solutions and different ways of working that people are applying and are using throughout your different locations. Now, if we dive in, we can see where we can help with those different objectives. If we talk about avoiding of recreation and repurchase, we typically are looking first of all into how can we optimize the way that people approaching content, that they can search for content and reuse that content. And we want to look also in the process efficiencies, again, to avoid that recreation and repurchasing of content, which will have more to do with the appropriate tagging, the appropriate governance and management of that content to such an extent. When we talk about governance and compliance, well, there's one thing called digital rights management, where we can manage the rights that are applied to a certain piece of content, and making sure that people are not using inappropriately something within their own channels, within their own regions in a certain timeline. And again, you want to connect some workflows and processes around that rights management, so that people can easily request extensions of rights, or can easily collaborate with a legal person, for instance, to change the rights or repurchase the rights of an asset, instead of, again, recreating a piece of content yourself. And if we talk about scalability, we talk about huge amount of content, mostly in a product structured way. And we want to ensure that people can localize, can use, can translate your standard marketing collateral, your templates, so to speak, within the organization. So if you dive into some further details on search, for instance, and again, I want to switch here between our slideware and our live environment, our demo environment, and show you a couple of things. By doing so, I'm now within my standard demo environment. And we've been touching already a couple of notions on pieces of content that we are managing inside of Sitecore Content Hub. And again, there's no there's no real entry point, and you can choose whether you want to focus first of all on assets, on products, or on content, but all of them remain searchable and remain easy to access. So if I go, as an example, into my content piece here, well, I do have a search component focusing on content, and here I will typically see different filter capabilities, my quick search for content. So if I'm interested in something containing lime, I can execute that search right here, and then we will search throughout all of the content pieces that we have within Sitecore Content Hub containing somewhere the textual content Lime or has been tagged somewhere with Lime. I also have my traditional faceted search here, in which I can say, okay, show me on the campaign Juice Summit 2019, what kind of recipes have we been developing, and I immediately get a clear overview of these recipes, some of them in a final stage, some of them still in progress, and immediately I can access that latest, greatest, and approved piece of content, focusing here on a recipe to create some ginger lemonade. But as I mentioned, this is not only applicable to pure content, I can do exactly the same thing from a more product perspective. So if I dive into my products part and opening all of the products that I have here available within my limited demo environment, I again have my quick search in which I can say, okay, show me everything that we have on coffee machines. And again, I will search through my complete database. At the same time, I can again clear those filters and use my faceted searching and say, okay, I need some product on Powerful, in this case. Something which is available in the Walmart catalog for 2014. And there we can see our different products available. And obviously this counts as much as it should to our pure assets environment, where again I can do my quick search, where again I can have my filters, I can do advanced searches, I can save my searches. So different pieces of content all being tagged appropriately and all being searchable appropriately as such. When we go back here to our explanation and our value-driven, we see that operational efficiencies that are being recorded on only that search efficiency. It says 30% reduction in duplication, and you can calculate yourself what that would mean from a budget perspective to your organization. And efficiency improvement, which obviously makes a lot of sense. At the same time, when I want to do this search through content, through products, through assets, and the combination of all of that, it means that I need some project management efficiencies within that environment. It means that I've seen many projects on centralizing content go south because of poor management, of poor governance of the information that is flowing within the solution. So as I mentioned before, each of our components, whether you talk about assets, whether you talk about content, whether you talk about products, they have a notion of workflow behind them to make sure that the governance of the system is in place, to make sure that within 3-year time, the system is still up and running and the system is still usable by your users. Again, many projects I've seen going wrong because of that poor governance and that poor management of the environment itself. So just some examples here. If I look into assets, a typical example that we have here on workflow within assets might be about data flowing into our solution. And therefore, Sitecore Content Hub comes with what we call a create zone. A create zone in which, and this is my personal view, nobody else has access to this, in which I can upload in various ways. I can start with an Excel sheet. I can upload my files into this waiting room within the environment. Again, nobody has access to it, only myself. And I've just, for the sake of the demo here, this morning I've grabbed a couple of pictures from Hotel d'Angleterre in Copenhagen and added them into the system. Just by drag and drop, you upload them into the environment. And obviously, I can already have access to all of the information related to this environment or to this asset. We will notice that there's some tagging here called building, sky, outdoor, city, which I didn't enter myself. we are using artificial intelligence here for some initial tagging of new files that are being uploaded. Just like we have a large white building here as a description is coming from the Vision API from Microsoft Azure as a service, an artificial intelligence service that we have here in place. And immediately I can start editing metadata here and say view of the entry to the hotel in Copenhagen. There we go. Save it as such. Immediately I have access to the system information. What's the size? What's the extension? What is this file about? More from a technical view. I can add some rights here and say, okay, is this a rights restricted thing? Yes, it is. Does it have? Does it always need an approval? Yes, it's very valuable. Has it some compliance rights profiles? Yes, it is. What is the complexity? What is the copyright? So I can enter all of that. They're still in my create zone, but I wanted to get to the process part of it. So for each of these assets, I now have a button here that says, I want to submit this one for approval. And I will do this only for the first image here, and I will leave the rest as is. So I can submit this particular piece of content for approval, which means obviously that it will disappear from my upload space with my create space, and it will become available within a review space, normally from another user. Obviously, for the sake of the demo, avoiding logouts, logins, I'll keep it to myself, and you will see that I have still some work to be done here on the review of incoming assets. So we see our hotel here. I have the ability to immediately approve, reject it one by one, or when selecting multiple, I can absolutely do that as well for multiple files. Now, before I do that, I want to check typically what is the content about, is the tagging been done appropriately, and so on. So again, I can do that. I also have the ability to annotate that asset on after upload during the review phase. So here we see our beautiful hotel in central Copenhagen, and I have some tools here available to say, okay, we need to do something, I don't know, right there or right there. And I can add some comments here. Can we make, can you delete this? There we go. So in the event that I would be declining the asset, it would get back to the uploader with a comment that it needs some improvements, that we need to delete here something on that particular part. But I won't do that today. Let's just, even with comments, I have the ability to approve in this demo environment. So let's approve it. And now we will go to the next phase of our process, which means that after creation review, it will now become available in my assets. And within that asset environment, we are filtering here on date created. So we can see that our Hotel d'Angleterre is now available here in the solution. Would be available for search immediately on all of the tags that we've applied. And if I would request a download, I need to say, okay, I'm going to use this one for end of this month from 29 till April 1st in the Benelux territory. And I'm going to use it on Twitter, or if I want to use another channel, I can say, let's do something digital, social, use it on Facebook. Okay. So I can immediately check the rights attached, and it says, as I've during my upload, it always needs explicit authorization to be used. So I can request it, and I can say I need this one for the announcement of our next Content Hub breakfast. Agree to the conditions of use, and I will send a request. Again, another example here of a process running behind the scenes, because now I would have within, again, normally somebody else, but for the sake of the demo, avoiding logout, login, I would have within my DRM requests, now the request March 19 request with a certain number here. that will guide me to that specific environment and say, okay, there's a download that has been requested. Who has requested that? Well, bar at sitecore.net, which is myself. For what purpose was it? And so on. So I can here approve or reject that request for downloading a file, which not from a rights management perspective. And this notion of workflow is always available, not only in the asset environment, but equally within my content environment. So again, if I go to my search, and I've already shown you actually something without focusing on it. If I go back to my Juice Summit, you can see I have some final, I have some progress, I have drafts. If you look at the recipe here in progress, well, we will notice that there's some process again under the hood, which is here focusing on my ID on content creation had been approved for creation. It has been worked. Today it is under status on the review. So somebody will need to approve or reject this particular piece of content. If it's approved, it's going to be published to the CMS, for instance. So I can here say approve and send it, and it will be sent out. And obviously we are changing now our status to approved for publication. So this notion of workflow again is running behind the scenes and is helping the management and the governance of our solution. Finally, same thing for products. If we look into our products, and a typical use case for products is the content, the completeness of our products. So again, we will notice here that some of our products are 100% complete. I can actually filter on them if I want to, or they are only 20, 40, 60% complete. And again, if I dive into the details, I can open up what my product is about here. And again, I will find a notion of that workflow or an overview of that process behind the scenes. It's in draft, it's in enrichment, it's in validation before it gets approved and before it gets archived. And clearly, we don't have a visual yet here on this product environment. So 2 examples of how we help not only searching, but also how we help managing and governing the solution from a workflow perspective. And I have actually already touched in regards of governance and compliance, reducing the risk by enforcing DRM. So on products, on content, on assets, you can apply digital rights, and to make sure that people are only publishing, only downloading, or only using the rights, the pieces of content where they actually have the right to do that. And this is again workflow driven, as I've shown you just in the short demonstration 5 minutes ago, in a process in a workflow driven way. Not over exaggerating from that workflow perspective. In the end, Content Hub is a solution that's been built and been created for marketing environments and marketing people. It's important that we don't overwhelm them with tasks and notifications, but to really a minimum project would be necessary. If we talk about scalability, we talk about managing huge amount of data. And again, I want to show you an example there on how we can achieve that within Sitecore Content Hub. And also I want to elaborate a little bit more on the web to print, the web to publish part of Sitecore Content Hub. Excuse me. So let me switch back to my Google Chrome environment here. Let me go back to my home screen. So people who are looking into assets, and again, I've touched already the notion of assets, content, and products. But what I mainly want to show you right now is how this all flows into each other and how it all gets tied into each other. So again, independently of where I'm entering, I can start diving into, for example, my product families here. And within my product families, I obviously have my searching capabilities or filtering capabilities. So I can go into my fruitful environment here and see we have one product family called fruitful lemonades. Now, I can go into that fruitful lemonade family, and I can drill down to further details of that family, meaning I have a core visual of the family. I have some details, which I manage here, which I tag here. Great citrus flavored lemonades served at the hotel over there in Copenhagen. So I can have my short description, my long description. Really, the idea here on that product family is, again, we inherit information from the ERP system typically, but we want to make it marketable, we want to make it sellable, so we typically add here the marketing romance, marketing text, maybe marketing categories and stuff like that. Within this family of lemonades, we have obviously the assets which are related to the complete family, including product visuals, including, in this case, a document, including a visual advertisement, a 3D visual of the product is available here as well as an example, just showing you here what this is about. So I have the possibility to render, in this case, 3D files within my environment and to show them as such. Not to go into much detail on the different file formats here, but just to give you that example. But it's a product family, remember, and a product family means that we might have different products within that family. So within the fruitful lemonades, we have here different flavors. We have the orange one, we have the lime one, we have the lemon one. Now, I can dive into the details. I can drill down into that notion of this orange flavor. I can see it's approved. Again, my notion of workflow and process is being popped up here. I can see the information that might come from ERP, that might be inherited or aggregated from another system. It's all being centralized in one single environment. I can see the assets here specifically for our orange flavored lemonade. So we are extend everything which has to do with lime and lemon is no longer visible. We are fully focusing on that orange environment. So I have my product notion, product families going to products, I going to assets, and also I have my link here to content. Because I notice here that we have different pieces of content that are being generated or have been generated in relation to this product called Fruitful Lemonade Orange. And we can see there's a couple of blog posts, and again, I can see that there's a recipe that has been created on this particular product. A recipe that fits into this kind of strategy. It's for certain audiences called need a boost personas. We're going to use that on the Facebook page for the US. I can see some details, whether or not it has been fitting into a certain campaign, what products it's related to. So again, I can switch from my content piece into my product piece, into my assets, into my product families, into my catalogs of products which are available for certain commerce usage, like we have here, for example, products which are available for Walmart in last year, 2019, as an example. And again, we see the same stuff here popping up. So this way of organizing content and data, whether it's assets, whether it's pure content, whether it's products, is a big differentiator for Sitecore Content Hub, and something that we are pretty proud of, and people find very, very easy to adopt, to learn, and to govern and to manage that over time. One last thing that I wanted to focus on, as I've mentioned in my slides, is regarding that web-to-print environment. And I have an example here that is focusing on, again, my fruitful lemonade templates. So I can see some templates here that have been created for me. So as a local marketeer or an external agency or whatever, I have access to that template. And I can translate and localize this template to my particular needs. So you see the template here being generated and showing you in a preview, but I can say, no, I need something for my orange flavor. So we are swapping out logos, visuals. We are changing colors in the template document. So here we will focus on the orange part, and we say the best orange juice in the world served at the hotel in Copenhagen. There we go, and we see it immediately. Depending on the rules that have been set here, how it should look, how it should feel, you can play around with that. The layout can be changed here. I can say, okay, I need it set to the right, and obviously we're not going to sell this in US dollars, but we're going to sell it in Danish. And let's say this is, I don't know, 0.75. There we go. So we can use it as such, or we say there's no price tag to it, or yes, there is. I can even go into further details and say, okay, on the frames, the background, for instance, I'm gonna swap out the background from my predefined library or from my personal images, if I'm allowed to do so. If I say I'm gonna do this from my visuals, and let's make it a bit summary here. Let's do this one or that one. Swap it out as such, and so on, and so on. And finally, I can download this as a low-res visual, high-res visual, or as an IDML or HTML version here, which I'm not going to do. I noticed one question popping in regarding mobile usage. Well, I can tell you that Sitecore Content Hub is fully available on your mobile devices. Obviously, it's a web interface, but it's optimized. It's a full HTML5, and it is working as whatever I've been showing you on the website, so to speak, interface is equally available if I would do that on a mobile device. So I can actually show you that, if not mistaken, just running it here, and you will see the possibilities. Well, I shouldn't do that, to be honest. But trust me, it is fully mobile enabled, so it will give you a user interface usable on your phone or iPads or any other mobile devices that you might have around. I mentioned pushing data out in the Hilton Worldwide scenario. And in each and every project, Sitecore Content Hub is rarely or never a standalone solution. So integrations with other business systems and business tools is of greatest importance. And here I can respond already to one of the questions that came up through the chat here. Obviously, integrations can be built. We can't develop standard connectors for each and every technology which is out there in the world regarding marketing. I trust you understand that. But we deliver with Sitecore Content Hub a complete and fully documented API, which is publicly available in order for people to create their proper integrations to their proper business systems already in place. And obviously, from a services perspective, you can be helped there as an organization by our Sitecore professional services or by one of the certified partners within our network of partners delivering Content Hub projects. But here I wanted to obviously focus a little bit on the, standard connectors. And here I can claim this is a standard connector to our own technology. We own the technology, we own the roadmap, we know what it is about and how it's going to evolve. So here we can say we have a standard connector to Sitecore XP. It's available for you customers on Sitecore XP to download that from your marketplace, making it possible to connect your Content Hub to XP in a couple of ways. I've shown you the CMP, the marketing content platform, creating those blog posts, articles, newsletters. From there on, we can publish that immediately to your XP environment. That's one example of an integration. In reverse, you can also sit into Sitecore XP And if you want to get a visual for your website from Content Hub, you will be guided immediately to a Content Hub user interface, and you can grab it from there, remaining in XP, but getting data from Sitecore Content Hub. We've also announced a integration with Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So a possibility for people who are running Salesforce Marketing Cloud, creating emails. You will have a Sitecore Content Hub component available within Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Again, allowing you to connect with Sitecore Content Hub to find, filter on relevant visuals that can be used within your email campaigns. And some other integrations that we have already created, that we are in the course of creating, is regarding work in progress, for instance, where we have a plugin mechanism connecting your Adobe Creative Cloud to Sitecore Content Hub, using visuals inside of InDesign, and opening files from Content Hub into Photoshop, for example, is a definite possibility. A similar way of integration with Microsoft OneDrive, but more on a solution agnostic level, pushing files from Content Hub to the desktop of a user, independently whether they want to open, adjust, amend them in any other application. It's really file type agnostic and application agnostic. We've recently announced a partnership with ProductsUp. ProductsUp is a solution that is focusing on massaging data, so to speak, to push it to external e-retailers. ProductsUp has established a data model for 1,500 different e-retailers globally today. And we partner with them to get our product information and product visuals out of Content Hub and to be able to publish them immediately to the Amazons and other online e-commerce environments. And they continuously take care of the data modeling. So whenever an Amazon or a Google or any other external retailer changes the requirements, that it gets updated as well. We get a lot of questions in regards of using a DAM as a central repository for PowerPoint presentations, videos, and other sales material, which absolutely makes a lot of sense. And that is obvious. That is also how we are using it internally within Sitecore. We have our own Sitecore Content Hub in which our product marketeers and our product managers are managing all of the sales materials made available to our sales force. The way that we publish it is not immediately from Sitecore Content Hub, but we have an intermediate solution called Showpad focusing on sales enablement. So the app and the synchronization between Sitecore Content Hub and the seller's iPhone, iPad, computer is being taken care of by a solution called Showpad. And we wanted to announce here today in Scandinavia our integration with Templify, unfortunately, and I guess you understand why. Some hiccups have been on last few days, last few weeks in finalizing that integration. But I can announce here today that we are looking into an integration to Templify, which will allow us to connect Sitecore Content Hub to your Microsoft Office environment. So template-based PowerPoint presentations, Word documents, and stuff like that, and even emails can be managed and governed within Templify, made available to your marketeers and other stakeholders. And then personalized content can be pulled in from Sitecore Content Hub to populate that that PowerPoint, Word, and email templates. That rounds it up a little bit here for our webinar for today. I'm giving you 20 minutes back of your time. I would suggest that we all go out and get some fresh air, have a 20-minute walk before getting back behind our machines and continue the day to work from home. Oscar sent me a couple of questions that we got through the chat. Some of them have been answered during the presentation, but I'll make sure that we centralize and summarize the questions and answers, and that this can be published or sent towards the attendance of this webinar here today. Unless, Oscar, you have anything else to add to this webinar, I think we can call it not a day, but at least call it a webinar. Thank you very much, and hope to be in touch soon.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.